My name's Doreen Nelson. I was born up in Killabarron in the wheatbelt area of Western Australia. Traditional country is the Balladong people, lived there for a long time. My parents were Patrick Jetta and Chrissy Jetta. She was a Yarram, part of the Michael family. And after I was born, I was taken back to native reserve, government native reserve, out from Killabarron, where many other Aboriginal people lived, Noongar families mainly. And we lived there in old camps that were just made out of tin and bush timber. My brothers and sisters, we had 15 in the family altogether. 4 of them have passed away when they were only young. They died of common illnesses that were around at that time, like gastroenteritis and measles, polio, those sort of childhood illnesses. But 11 of us grew to adulthood, and we had 8 brothers. Sterling is the oldest, then Vincent, then Bernie, Clem, Ira, Bruce, who's also here with me today, Dennis, and 3 girls, my older sister Dorothy and my younger sister May. But yeah, we had I guess you could say we had well, to me it wasn't hard because I was only young when we lived out at Killabarron on the During Mission Reserve there. There was a mission across the road from where all the Noongar people lived, and my older sister and brothers went to school there because they wasn't allowed to go into the town school because of the government's policy at the time on segregation. We had to live out of the town, and school kids had to go to the mission school. And that went for quite a while. There was a lot of Aboriginal people that went to that school, a lot of older people than me. But I first started going to school in Killabarron. Started there in the early 1950s. Didn't go there long because we moved on to Killabarron, moved on to Doodleycarn, where our grandmother lived. She'd lived there for quite a while, just on the outside of the town. It was very close to the town, really. And a lot of the family members were born there. She was a midwife, well-known midwife in the area, and she lived there in an old tin camp, and when we moved there, our parents made camps, and Dorothy and myself went to start school there. And I done all my primary school at Doodleycarn. But after a short while of living at the Doodleycarn camps, because of the Killabarron Roads Board, they were a bit concerned about the sanitary conditions there because there were no toilets, so we had to move further out of town up to the Doodleycarn Quarry. And we stayed there for a long time. There were only camps there in the beginning. My brother had built a camp there, and he moved away, Vincent Jetta and his family. And so after a while we moved into his camp. And then about that time they started to put the toilets and showers up there for the people, because before that we only had, there was only one water tap for everyone to use. The same as out at During Reserve, you know, there was only one water tap and everyone had to cart their water in buckets, and we had to wash in the old aluminium tubs and these sort of things. But life was really hard, I guess. But one good thing I could say that there was always our family around, you know, all the old people that were there, and they used to tell a lot of stories hand their stories down to the younger fellas, and it was happy times for many of us, even though we lived under very strict government conditions, you know, government policies that were made. And I think they wanted to do the right thing by Aboriginal people by bringing in the protection policy, but it just, I guess, separated our families more because people then, they sort of felt that they were not in prison, but you know they didn't have any opportunity to do what they wanted to do. Our mum and our dad both applied for the citizenship rights certificate. Our mum didn't really need it because her father was a non-Aboriginal man, but because she lived with Aboriginal people, amongst Aboriginal people all her life, she considered herself as an Aboriginal person, Noongar person. But no, many of the families now, many family members, the older ones especially, have passed away. Some of the families, the younger families, still live around the area in Killaberan, and as a family, myself and my brothers and sisters, we've always tried to go back to country, and you know, just for maybe just a bit of get a bit of strength or a bit of healing because of past practices. But no, it certainly was a hard life, and my sister Dorothy and Bruce, my brothers Bruce and Dennis, who will be coming with us on this trip, will tell you more about you know, some of the things that happened on the reserves. I think I was only about 6 years old when I left the reserves, the During and Doodleycan ones, but when I lived on the quarry, times were hard there too because we didn't have anything like, was able to get any Centrelink benefits or anything like that, so people had to go to work. Myself and many other young women went onto the farms and worked all day for $2, you know, but $2 was a lot of money those days, so yeah, it was hard, but like I said, we always had our family around. On the Doodleycan Quarry, it was a place, and we will talk more as we go around these places. I think we stayed there for about 1950s, 1960s, about 10 years, before they started closing all the reserves down. I met my husband there on the Doodleycan Reserve and got married when I was young, and then travelled around to all different places over the years. And because we travelled around a lot, my children were born in all different places. My oldest daughter, Leslie, was born up in Kalgoorlie, and then my middle oldest one, Cynthia, was born in Merredin, and the youngest daughter, Michelle, she was born at the quarry because no matter where my husband travelled for work, there was always times when we came back to the quarry to stay with my mum. So yeah, that was very special because my grandmother lived in a house. They built 4 houses there then, very standardised housing, Holmes West. And my mum got one, and my grandma also got one. So while I was there, I was staying with mum, and I was pregnant for my youngest daughter, and one night I couldn't make it to the hospital, so she was born there. But previously, before that, my brother, Bruce, his wife also had a baby on the reserve there, and Grandma delivered him too. And there was also another one after my daughter that was born there, and that was another one of Bruce's children. But our grandmother was very old when she was delivering these children. I guess, in a way, it was a little bit concerning because we sort of asked the question, you know, is everything going to be all right, not being near the hospital, because all the other children were born in the hospital. But no, she was very, very calm, and she knew what she was doing, so there was no worries there. So she made us feel a lot better, yeah. And so those children that were born there, their after birth is buried on that country there. So that'll always be, their home, their country. Yeah, so after the quarry, we moved into Killabarron because the 1970s, all the reserves were starting to close down right across Western Australia, I think. And so people were being moved into state housing accommodation in the towns. So we moved into Killabarron. While we were in there, my son was born, my only son, only one son I've got, yeah. So he was born there in Killabarron, but he was born in the hospital, and we stayed there for a while. And I guess my husband, Grant Nelson, all his family come from around the Quallion, Meriden area, so they were always we always knew the families, the different Noongar families around the place, like everybody sort of does now. They know, if you live in a particular area, you know everyone that's there. So, yeah, it was good back in those days. It was very hard life, and I'm sure my brothers and my sister will tell you more about, the conditions and other things that happened there, but I guess it just gave me more incentive to want to be able to maybe do something more for myself. So when we moved down to Perth, we stayed in Northern for a couple of years. My husband got a job there. We moved down to Perth for a couple of years, and he started going to the Curtin University. It was then called Waite. And I was home. All my children were at school, so I started to look after some of the small children that were, when their mums were going to the university there. So I started doing that, and then it was a childcare centre, and it was actually registered. So that was one of the first ones around the city here, an Aboriginal one. But I enjoyed doing that for a while. We stayed in Perth for about a couple of years, and then my husband got a job down in Wandering as the coordinator of the Alcohol and Rehabilitation Centre. And that was very interesting because we met a lot of people that came from all areas in Australia, coming down for treatment for alcohol damage that had been done to them. But it was good, so got an idea of how other people in other areas lived, other Aboriginal people. It was at the time also that my father-in-law passed away. So after that we moved back to Perth, and then we moved to Alice Springs. Alice Springs was a great place. There was plenty of work, and my husband got a job at the Sidros hostel there as a manager, and I got work in different. I got a job at the school first as a teacher's assistant, and then I went worked with the old people at the aged care. But then I thought about going back to school, or going back to as learning as a mature adult and trying to increase my education standard. So I started doing some courses, and I done the general studies course first, and then started a 2-year external course from the Underdale College in South Australia, and that I got an associate diploma in Aboriginal studies. So even though I was Aboriginal, I wanted to learn more about all Aboriginals, because and just just to, I guess, see if the things that I was feeling and knowing what happened in my life was similar to what happened to theirs. And I found out a lot about that, because even though, we were different groups, Aboriginal groups all over Australia, there was a lot of similarities, but there was also a lot of differences, and that's only just sort of natural because of different language groups. Language, Aboriginal or Noongar language to us, I can understand a lot of the Noongar language, but because of the government policies at the time where our parents weren't allowed to teach us the language or teach us any cultural customs or stuff like that. We didn't learn the language fluently, so I don't speak it fluently now, and I don't wish to learn it because I do know enough, I think, of the language, but I don't speak it fluently, and because our parents weren't allowed to teach us, I don't really, I guess I don't really want to learn to be taught by someone else now. So language is something that's handed down by family members, and we didn't have that opportunity because of different regulations that were in place. But no, still very much so, consider myself as a Noongar woman, and I try to remember all the cultural things that happened in our past, which we don't think about much, and teach my children and my grandchildren, especially my grandchildren and great-grandchildren, because they're at an age where they're willing to learn these things, it's so different. But that's one of the main reasons why I'm doing this story, is to let my family know, and anyone else, I guess, our life was for us back then. The opportunities that we missed out on, we didn't really have a say on what we could do or where we could go. We were always told, and I think that's a bit of a problem now with our people, because they still think that they need to rely on the welfare system, There's so much now they can do themselves. There's so many opportunities out there. And I'm really pleased because having lived under those policies, government policies, the protection and segregation policies, I'm now at a place in my life where I'm really comfortable, and I help make policies, so I'm really glad that I'm able to still contribute to that. But my life, I guess, has been, not so interesting to me, but maybe interesting to a lot of other people that, have travelled right around Australia, been to most, all the capital cities, and a lot of this was done through going back to study, doing different courses, which study trips took us all over the place, to Queensland, to Sydney, the top end, but no, a lot of opportunities came up once I was able to go back and, do some more education. In Alice Springs, 8 of my grandchildren were born there, so it was a very special place. Both my sister Dorothy and brother Bruce came up there a couple of times to visit us. So they travelled that far too. That was, a long way from Perth, but from our area. But they came up there and they enjoyed visiting. 8 grandchildren were born there, and they're all grown up now. They have children of their own. And I now have got 11 grandchildren, so I've got 11 great-grandchildren.